Empowering grassroots women in the communities.
Eileen Weir, I'm a community activist.
Reflecting back, how did you become an active leader in the community and what risks did you take for peace?
When I became unemployed within the factory that I was a trade union, I started volunteering in Shankill Women's Centre at the time. Uh, I joined the trade union movement to try and make a difference for women. So I thought I could transfer my skills in the community and try and make a difference in the lives of women in the community. So that was what my interest was, and I started volunteering in Shankill Women's Centre in 1995 ish, and then I became employed after uh, maybe a year of volunteering. I became employed in Shankill Women's Centre, and that's where I got my education, as in the wee E education, because when I had no qualifications. I had no qualifications at the time. I only have one qualification now, and that's an NVQ. But I learned an awful lot more personal development courses, different courses that I took. Uh, we would have done like cross border stuff as well as cross community stuff uh, with other organisations that came in at that time. And the more and more information that I got, the more and more active I became. I think around the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, when we had the Good Friday Agreement, that was a time where not everybody read the Good Friday Agreement, and there was a lot of myths in the community on the Good Friday Agreement. So I took up the reins to educate women and put courses on in Shankill Women's Centre of the Good Friday Agreement and what the Good Friday Agreement meant, and the three strands. You remember at that time people were very much the Catholics is going to get everything and the Protestants is going to get nothing. And that's what the talk was, even when the Good Friday Agreement was voted for. And I had to use simple scenarios to explain what the Good Friday Agreement actually was about. And really, if you describe it, well, the way I described it was that if you had a milking stool and one of the legs of the milking stool was broke, it falls. And the three pillars of three different areas in the Good Friday Agreement meant that all three had to work before it actually would work. So that really was more information and more information, that I was able to actually get out in the community, the more empowered women would become. So that was the start of the journey, and I decided that if I was well informed, and then I could well inform others and take away the myths and the propaganda. So really that's how it all started. And 30 years on, I was still doing the same thing. I challenge things. If it's not right, I'm going to fight against it. So I'm more into the human rights of things and the fairness of things and people to be equal in our society. I believe that the future of our society is inclusion, and that's with everybody in round the table, and nobody should be excluded, in particular women, because the women took us through the biggest part of the conflict, who done all the hard work on the ground, and any disasters that happens in our communities, it's the women who actually get out there and try to get things resolved. And there's risks in that. And a lot of the things you do, if I'm given the right information out and the propaganda comes from a other source that's not saying what I said, then I be intimidated for telling the truth. and not following the crowd and what the crowd is being told. And I think that was the trade union training done that for me, that you have to actually get as close to the truth as you can, because there's many versions of the truth. I'm not saying that people were telling lies, but they were only taking wee bits of the information and translating it the way they want. And the only way to get the information is actually going to find out what the truth is, as close to the truth. I tell them the truth sometimes. The pose the risks and how I safeguard myself. Probably in those risks was I didn't really safeguard myself, because when I started working in the community, I didn't think it was necessary to guard yourself on telling the truth. And it was probably round about the Good Friday Agreement, trying to give women the information of what was happening, that I found out that, I need to be careful here. But when somebody hits you with a lie and you know the truth, you're going to challenge that. So it was about challenging people, and way back then, you just didn't know who you were challenging, or you did know who you were challenging, and you knew what the consequences could have or may have been.
We now live in a world of social media and misinformation. As a community practitioner, how do you deal with that and protect yourself?
Well, social media, I don't do it. I don't do it. And one of the reasons why I don't do it is because I don't want to get roped into that scenario. I have been attacked on social media, that other people have sort of kept me informed of what was happening when I had been attacked on social media. I think sometimes when you read it, you lose your direction. Where if I'm not being influenced by what I'm seeing or hearing on social media, I am actually getting the facts from the right source and not listening to what's been said on social media. And that's not to say all that's on social media is bad. Some good stuff on social media, in particular with the women's movement. Social media is a big thing to get information out to women, to get information out to groups. But when it comes to actually, calling names and using language that shouldn't be used against anybody, never mind just me. So I ignore it, because I don't feed into it, and I don't do it because I learned during the work that I was doing, I found out the right information, and then if somebody talks to me about what they've seen on social media, then I can tell them the truth. I don't need to go onto social media to tell the truth.
Looking forward, peace building is a learnt skill. What is needed to develop the next generation of peace builders?
Now this is something that over the last number of years that I have tossed with in my head. We have a peace agreement, so peace is there, but we still have the conflict. And I think they both are different. We have a peace agreement, so if you're talking about peace building, we already have a peace agreement. What we need to be dealing with in the future is the conflict that our society is now in, and that is not an orange and green issue. We have conflicts throughout our society that we still need to build those relationships, and the good relationships, to build friendship and to build awareness with everybody in civic society, and not just an orange and green card, because our peace agreement was built on an orange and green ticket. We are no longer that society. We have moved on. The biggest majority of people have moved on from the orange and green, and we are now looking at inclusion, which I would like to see. The only way to get that inclusion is information, sharing the information with everybody, and bringing people together to deal with the conflicts in our areas, and that is many. I couldn't list all the conflicts that we face as community workers on a daily basis. Need to keep, in particular, women, because women are the grandchildren. They're women. You know, we have mothers, we have aunts, you know, we have all those generations within families, and that's where I found that the women's sector and the women's centres actually played one of the biggest roles of the whole peace agreement, and are continuing to deal with the conflict that's there on the ground with very, very little investment in those community organisations who tirelessly are building those relationships up as we speak. And they haven't went away. They didn't throw the towel in when tough got going, when the going got tough. We stuck in there, and we have built a well-oiled machine within the women's movement.